Hi, I'm Marybeth Van Horn. Welcome to Nurse Chats. Hey, listen, after COVID 19 is over, infectious disease prevention is not over. So let's keep in mind that this is the stuff we've learned during COVID 19 has been around forever and it's important. But COVID 19 made it more and more in the news and more in the public eye. But all of it is still important. Every year we go through the flu, right? So the worst flu season I've ever had, besides COVID 19, was back in 2018 when people were literally coughing for 10 and 12 weeks at a time. I mean, I looked it up and I had a Facebook post once that I said, is anybody else still coughing? Because I had been coughing for 10 weeks at that point, I think it was. And I can't tell you how many responses I got, hundreds of responses of people that were coughing and coughing for up to 3 months during the flu season. And many people got pneumonia. And my particular case, I got pneumonia in my right lung. I got what they call a consolidation of my right lung, and it was something called Haemophilus. And Haemophilus has a tag to it called influenza. The reason that Haemophilus influenzae became known and popular is that back in the 1800s, over 100 years ago, the flu turned into pneumonia, which was killing people worldwide, pandemic. And so the pneumonia organism that a doctor finally identified was called Haemophilus, and that's a bacteria. And so Haemophilus killed a lot of people. Well, 100 years or more have gone by, and everybody says, "Oh, that's an old disease. We don't have that today." Yes, we do, because I was diagnosed with Haemophilus influenzae, the tagline, because it went into my lungs, and that was by bacteria that went into my lungs from the influenza virus symptoms lasting so long. The virus dies. Viruses are rather fragile for the most part. COVID's a little more virulent, but typically viruses are fragile. They don't like extremes in temperatures and various things, and they leave the body or die within their course. But what happens is that we get stuffy nose, or we get a bad lung infection, or things that go on that for weeks, coughing and all these things, coughing, and you're saying, okay, I must not be contagious anymore. I've had this so long. Well, you're not contagious necessarily from the virus, but you're contagious from the bacteria. So guess what? Bacteria develops because of stagnant, fluids within the body, in the mucous membranes and in the, the lungs and in the bowel. And, there's a reason that bacteria breeds, okay? And it's a breeding ground loves, things like, pus or mucus or, those kinds of things that develop through infections from wounds or from prolonged symptoms after the flu. So the influenza virus is a virus, but bacteria is just as important and as worrisome. So again, I hope after COVID, I never hear again from another person that comes to an event and says, "Oh gosh, I've been sick for weeks. Oh my goodness, I've been coughing and coughing and coughing." What are you doing here? Why are you doing this? And infecting everyone else around you. And the people say, "Oh no, I'm not contagious anymore. I've had this for weeks." Well, guess what? Weeks means bacteria. And then they're coughing. And the people who don't cover their mouth or cover it with their hand and then shake your hand. We're taught to cough now literally into our arm and into our elbow so that it doesn't transmit and transfer. Coughing can travel, the droplets can travel several feet, as we've learned with the COVID virus, right? And now they're saying, 6 feet, 10 feet distancing. Why? Because of the droplets are infected. And so when you cough all over people, you're spewing droplets. Sneezing, the average sneeze, a small sneeze, unprotected, unstopped, travels at least 3 feet. And if you ever are standing in the sunlight, you can see the droplets flying through the air. So please don't do that ever again in the future. I hope COVID-19 has taught us that we do social distancing, we do shelter in place when we're sick. Do not go to work, send your kids to school, come to events sick. It's wrong. And from now on, I guess what the real big change is going to be is not necessarily that people won't show up sick, but the other people won't tolerate it anymore. And the other people say, listen, you got to go. Don't be here. And do not cough on me. And put your arm like this. And do not do this. And then shake my hand. In the nursing setting, in hospitals, we're, of course, very aware of bacteria and viruses and what we call microbes, okay? But the truth is that you can touch something innocent, a surface, and think that you're okay. Back in the old days especially, we didn't wear gloves for everything we did, and then touch your body. You know, they say that the average person touches their face area hundreds of times a day. But the other way is, let's say you have a cut on your finger, and let's say you have a cut somewhere, and now you've touched the cut after you've been exposed, okay? That's another way that things are transmitted. They could come into your body through a open skin lesion, okay? Then we have touching of our private area, our face, our, you know, we're just all day long in our normal activities are touching parts of our body. This is the reality of it. Then we have bacteria growing on surfaces. People who don't think that they need to wipe off their counters. Hopefully you've learned that during COVID, that things can live on surfaces. And if you have crusted counters in your kitchen, that you might as well just think bacteria, because that's bacteria growing within hours on that counter, or dirty dishes for days in the sink. I was a home nurse for a while, and I've had many experiences in my career, but I can't tell you how many people in the home setting said to me, would you like a glass of water? And I fell for it a few times, the first few times when I was a brand new home care nurse, and I took the water, and almost everyone had a visibly dirty glass, like as in grimy. And oh my God, the first time I took a sip and saw that was, of course, ghastly for me. And I just never did accept water again. And if I felt like I wanted to be kind and accept water, I'd put it down on the table and not drink it. Home nurses come into a home and we hold our bag very close to our body and on our body, and we have it sitting on our lap as we're speaking to the patient. And we sit several feet away from the patient to begin with. Then we don't sit all over the furniture. We sit on the edge of the chair. There's several things that home nurses do to protect themselves. And if you've ever had an inspection from an outside agency looking at you while you're at a home care visit, they're watching for those kind of things. So yes, of course, we have to come close to the patient. Of course, we have to touch the patient. But then we better wash our hands, make sure we wash our hands before we leave, when we walk in the house, before we approach the patient. These are just good techniques. Hand washing is number one, of course, but mask if needed. In the future, I'm going to have a mask in my pocket. And if somebody's coughing, I'm going to hand it to them, because COVID-19 taught us that much. So I get very emotional or forthright about this, because it's so important. And bacteria is just as bad, if not worse, than viruses, because you can't get an immunity to bacteria, and some bacteria live in the body for life. Tuberculosis exposure shows that you've been exposed for life, if you didn't know that. Some hepatitis and various things like that also have the same effect. But thanks for visiting today at Nurse Chats.